Good evening, explorers, and welcome to the range, where we're going to be breaking down various weapons, tools, and mechanics of the game's sandbox. Today, we're talking all things 7.62 by 39, both the caliber and the weapons that utilize it. 7.62 by 39, also commonly referred to as 7.62 Soviet, is an intermediate rifle cartridge designed in 1943 by a whole committee of dudes. Said committee had some of the biggest names in the Soviet arms industry at the time, including Elizarov, Tokarev, Fedorov, and Shvagin, just to name a few. It quickly became perhaps the most prolific rifle cartridge in history, seeing use pretty much everywhere in the world, whether it be for military or civilian applications. Although not the first of its kind, it really set the stage for military powers all over the world to make the switch from full power rounds like 308 and 30-06 to intermediate ones like the later 5.56. In-game, we have the standard assortment of ammo for your shitbox AK you've been neglecting to chew through. Starting with the usual baseline, FMJ has a 70% chance to penetrate armor, deals 100% damage, and has a cost of 360 for a box of 30 rounds. Armor Piercing, or AP, increases the penetration chance to a whopping 95%, while only dealing 85% of the damage. It has a higher cost of 420 for a box of 30 rounds. Subsonic, or SS, makes your shots much quieter at a cost of 10% of your damage and 50% of your projectile velocity. This makes shots a bit harder to hit at range, especially on moving targets. And as we can see here, when compared to the younger brother 5.45, 7.62 by 39 has overall better penetration characteristics at the cost of a bit of raw damage. Moving on to the weapons, first up is the SKS. Designed in 1945 by Sergei Simonov, it was the first rifle produced to use the new at the time 7.62 by 39 cartridge. Despite not being quite as prolific as the AK family of rifles, the SKS is no slouch, also being among the top 10 most produced rifles in the world. It's essentially just a scaled down PTRS-41, which was a fucking anti-tank rifle. In-game it has a weight of 3.7 kilograms, a mag size of 10 or 30, and a damage per shot of 40. Two things to note here. Firstly, the SKS and AKM have shared mags. Second, this thing is heavy. The second heaviest intermediate rifle in the game, beat out only by the OC-14 Groza. This gun does feature a last round bolt holdopen that can be closed with the fire select button, like any other pistol, and also the AR platform. From 100% to 50% durability, it will take around 14 mags or 420 shots. The sights are decent enough, and you can even equip a PU scope, the same one that the Mosin can use. It has a cost of $3,200 in the shop, the cheapest rifle in the game. For upgrades, you can get a B-rail for $600, a suppressor adapter for $750, minus 30% recoil for $850, and a B-rail sight for $650. Stash spoiler, skip to this time if you want to avoid that. An SKS can be found here in the Kolkhoz train yard on top of a train car. You can hop a railing to get up there. Bear in mind, it comes below 50% condition and must be repaired in the shop. Other than that, it has to be purchased at the shop to obtain. Overall, this thing kinda sucks. At least when compared to its peers, its high weight, high recoil, and relatively low damage really kinda kill this thing for me. The stash is almost useless since it's in one of the most difficult areas in the game. As much as I love this thing aesthetically, I would just skip it for an all-round better rifle. I guess you could argue this is good for someone wanting a rifle at security level 2, but even then, I just don't think it's worth it. It's not a bad gun, it's just really underwhelming compared to every other rifle in the game. And for that, it gets a 5 out of 10. God, I wish this thing still had the bayonet. The second and final gun for today is the iconic AKM. Originally the AK-47, designed in 1947 by legendary small arms designer Mikhail Kalashnikov, it was inspired by the German Sturmgewehr rifles of World War II. Even though the creation of this weapon was likely spurred on by the Sturmgewehr 44, from a design perspective, it actually functions much more like the American M1 Garand, being a long-stroke, piston-operated weapon. The AKM is the later, but far more common variant, having a stamped receiver instead of a milled one for ease of manufacturing, along with a few other minor improvements. In-game, it has a weight of 3.1 kilograms, a mag size of 30 or 10, and a damage per shot of 45. It has a standard AK-style fire selector. Bear in mind, to charge the weapon, it cannot be in safe. It must be in semi or fully automatic mode. From 100% to 50% durability, it will take around 17 mags or 510 shots. The standard iron sights are a bit cumbersome in my opinion, so I always run an optic whenever I can. It has a cost of $4,500 in the shop. Possible upgrades include a B-rail for 600, minus 20% recoil for 750, plus 20% rate of fire for 650, and a B-rail sight mount for 750. Stash spoilers, skip here. An AKM stash can be found under this truck here in Pobeda. Unfortunately, it's almost completely busted and will need to be repaired. AKMs can also be found in metal crates in Pobeda, Kolkhoz, and the castle. Overall, well, before we get into my rating, I just wanted to clarify something. My ratings are almost purely based on my personal playstyle. I don't like using the shop unless I absolutely have to, or I want to try out a gun that I just can't otherwise. I find it far more gratifying to use what I find and just make it work, and that is a large factor in how I rate them. Also, since I'm generally an all-around cheap bastard, the high penetration FMJ is big for me. Seriously, I didn't realize how big 20% was until I was using them back to back, and was just doing so much better with the AKM as opposed to the AK-74. And for that, I'm giving it a 10 out of 10. It is the ideal mid-game rifle for my weird minimalist playstyle. And just for the sake of comparison, here are two tests that I did with both the AKM and the AK-74. As you can see, the AKM has significantly more recoil. It's actually pretty comparable to the AKS-74U. Personally, this isn't really a big deal for me, as I never use full auto past probably around 10 meters or so anyway. Speaking of full auto, you know what would be cool? .762 by 39. What it lacks in that little bit of extra damage, it makes up for in armor penetration consistency. 545 does have a higher ceiling for potential if you throw a bunch of money at it, but for those of us with simpler tastes, grab a box of that cheap shit and go raw dog Kolkhoz with it. Until next time, explorers.